Yeah!
Young male human, usually a child or adolescent. When he becomes an adult, he is described as a man. The most apparent difference between a typical boy and a typical girl is the genitalia. However, some intersex children with ambiguous genitals, and genetically female transgender children, may also be classified or self-identify as a boy. The term boy is primarily used to indicate biological sex distinctions, cultural gender role distinctions or both. The latter most commonly applies to adult men, either considered in some way immature or inferior, in a position associated with aspects of boyhood, or even without such boyish connotation as age indiscriminate synonym. The term can be joined with a variety of other words to form these gender-related labels as compound words. The word boy comes from Middle English boy, servant, related to other Germanic words for boy, namely East Frisian boy, young man, and West Frisian boy, boy. Although the exact etymology is obscure, the English and Frisian forms probably derive from an earlier Anglo-Frisian boya, little brother, a diminutive of the Germanic root bo, brother, male relation, from Proto-Indo-European bat, father, brother. The root is also found in Flemish bo, brother, Norwegian dialectal boa, brother, and, through a reduplicated variant bobo, in Old Norse bofi, Dutch boef, criminal, knave, rogue, German bube, knave, rogue, boy. Furthermore, the word may be related to boya, an Anglo-Saxon personal name. Ongoing debates about the influences of nature versus nurture in shaping the behavior of girls and boys raises questions about whether the roles played by boys are mainly the result of inborn differences or of socialization. Images of boys in art, literature and popular culture often demonstrate assumptions about gender roles. In some Middle Eastern cultures, characteristics affirming boyhood include physiological features associated with prepubescence, such as pubelessness and the inability to ejaculate. An adult male human is a man, but when age is not a crucial factor, both terms can be interchangeable. For example, boys and their toys applies equally to adults and young boys, just as are you mice or men. Can also apply to young boys. The age boundary is not clear-cut, rather dependent on the context or even on individual circumstances. A young man who has not assumed, or has been denied, the traditional roles of a man might also be called a boy. It may feel uncomfortable to a young male upon being referred to as a man before he believes he has assumed these roles, such as having a career, a partner, a household of his own, fatherhood, etc., though the addition of a jocular modifier such as young man or little man might lessen the dissonance. Conversely, it may feel uncomfortable to a male to be called a boy if he believes he has assumed the traditional roles of a man. In mother'(s/mama's boy, the word emphatically implies a male, minor or adult in years, who is too immature to be independent. In some traditions boyhood is held to be exchanged for adult manhood, or at least approach it significantly, by certain independent acts assuming a role deemed to be typical for a normal man, though there are limits, as marriage, fathering offspring or military service. Various cultural and/or religious rites of passage serve, partially or specifically, to mark the transition to manhood. There is often a number of traditional differences in attire between boys and adult men, which may even give rise to a metaphoric term such as broekvent in Dutch, that is, a boy who has not yet graduated from shorts to trousers, and in what is socially accepted as appropriate behavior. For example, boys may be publicly seen naked in cultures where men are not. In English, the words youth, teenager and adolescent may refer to either male or female. No gender-specific term exists for an intermediate stage between a boy and a man, except young man, although the term puberty, for one who reached sexual reproductivity, or the legally assumed age, for example 14 for boys, often set lower for girls, without being a legal adult yet, stems from a Latin word for boys only, itself named after the accompanying male body hair, pubes, on face and genital region. Many occasions occur when an adult male is commonly referred to as a boy. A person's boyfriend or lover boy may be of any age, This even applies to a working callboy, toy boy, though usually younger than the client, as youth is generally considered attractive. Reflecting the general aesthetic preference for youth, one says pretty boy, for example in the nickname of Charles Arthur Pretty Boy Floyd, who committed his first bank robbery at age 30, or Adonis, name of a mythological youth, even when a male beauty is clearly of riper age. In terms, used pejoratively or neutrally, for homosexuals such as batty boy, alongside batty man, from bottom, or bum boy, age is not essential, but the connotation of immaturity can strengthen insulting use. A man's group of male friends etc. engaged in male bonding are often called the boys. It is most common to refer to men, irrespective of age or even in an adult age group, as boys in the context of a team, especially all male, such as old boys for networking of adult men who attended the same schools as boys, or as professional colleagues, for example the boys at the office, police station etc. often all adults. The members of a student fraternity can be called fraternity boys, technically preferable to the pleonasm frat brother, and remain so for life as adults, after graduation. Boy Scouts as summer camp in the United States. In sports the boys commonly refers to the teammates, for example, UK football managers quite often refer to their players as the boy so-and-so, and this usage is by no means restricted to the youngest players, though it is rarely applied to the most senior. In US urban slang, particularly in African American and Latino slang, the term boy is used with the possessive as meaning friend, my boy, his boys, presumably as a reduction of homeboy, originally a male from the same area. In some cases, the word boy is used merely to designate the age of the male person, irrespective of the function, as an altar boy, a minor acting as liturgical acolyte, or in Boy Scouts, an organization specifically for boys. Thus the compound man can then be replaced by boy, as in footboy, or boy is simply added, either as a prefix, for example, in boy racer, or as a suffix, for example, in teddy boy. An adult equivalent, with or without man, is not to be expected when boy designates an apprentice, for which some languages use a compound with the equivalent of boy, for example leerjongen learning boy in Dutch, or lowest rank implying specific on-the-job training if promotion is to be obtained, as in kitchen boy. Similarly schoolboy only applies to minors. The modern near synonym pupil originally designated a minor in Roman law as being under a specific adult's authority, as in loco parentis. Expressions such as boys will be boys, that is, a male always retains a tendency for boyish games or mischief, allude to stereotypically ascribed characteristics of boys and men, in the term tomboy, a woman's, according to the counterpart gender stereotype. Uncharacteristically bold nature is even described solely by comparing her to a boy. The use of boy, like kid, in fantasy or descriptive nicknames, also for adult men, for example shark boy for a wrestler with matching costume, may also connote to the informal or naughty image of boyhood. In such terms as city boy or home boy, the age notion is at most anachronistic, as they indicate any male who grew up, or by extension lived a long time, in a certain environment. The following subsections treat some specific contexts where the term boy is frequently used, as such or in compound terms, often emancipated from the age notion as such. Master was replaced, not for a slave owner or his overseer etc., by the late 19th century, as a form of address, especially employed by servants, by Mr., etymologically equal, for the master of the household and other adults, but retained for boys until age 13. Military. The term our boys is commonly used for a nation's soldiers, often with sympathy. Given the physical demands of battle, recruits are preferably in their physical prime, but adult professionals remain included in the term as long as they remain in service. A case where the term is formally used for adult men is sideboy, a member of an even-numbered group of seamen posted in 2 rows at the quarterdeck when a visiting dignitary boards or leaves a ship. In the Ottoman Empire, the young, mainly Christian military recruits for life, often forcibly enlisted by Devshirm, were officially called ismiaglinler, novice boys. Thus boy can enter the nickname for a particular nation's soldiers, for example the U.S. infantry, doughboy, or a specific force, for example flyboy is slang for an airman. Furthermore, specific terms refer to minors used in the armed forces. Drummer boy. Ship's boy is a minor in naval training. Boy seaman refers to specific, low-paid apprentice ranks, notably in the Royal Navy. Until the middle of the 20th century, they were the only Navy staff subject, like their civilian-age peers, at home and in school, to physical punishment, usually spanking, traditionally administered on the bare bottom. As in English public schools, the adults were lashed on the backside above the waist, either formally, ordered in court-martial, publicly executed on deck, or, more often but less severely, summary. The same was true of a midshipman, also a minor, but indicated with man rather than boy, possibly reflecting their higher status as future naval officers. Sometimes in ex-servicemen's parades, an old man is described as ship's boy to say that he served so classed in the Navy as a boy. However, when a minor in military employ is considered, historically often far less restrictive than nowadays, too young to be a normal warrior, illegal under present UN rules, but without precise enforceable age limits, he's called boy soldier, regardless whether he's used as an armed fighter or only in logistic or similar functions such as bearer, domestic, residential and similar personal attendants. Bellboy was originally a ship's bell ringer, later a hotel page. Busboy is a rank in restaurants etc. below, head, waiter, fitting for trainees but may be held by ripe adults, even under younger, for example better qualified, superiors. Cabana boy. Cabin boy. Hall boy. Hamam bath boy, also called telik, working in a Turkish bath. Houseboy, or often boy for short, became a common term for domestic staff, notably non-European natives in the Asian and African colonies, adopted as such in other languages, for example in Dutch and French, also in the Belgian colonies. Kitchen boy, belows the cooks. In a large household there may be specific functions, such as spit boy. Link boy like linkman meant torch or other light bearer. Page, from the Greek pi alpha iota sigma pais, again in many languages, already in Hellenistic times pi alpha delta epsilon sigma beta alpha sigma iota lambda iota kappa omicron paids basilikoi royal, that is court, boys. Cultural and religious life. Altar boy, see above. Choir boy designates a boy, always a minor, singer in a choir. Here applies a specific physiological, artistically relevant criterion. They remain a musical category of their own, boy soprano, also known as a treble, until their voice breaks, during puberty, to join one of the adult male voice registers, countertenor, closest to treble, alto, tenor, baritone, or bass. Only the castratome, not guaranteed, remain a soprano as an adult man. Historically the term was designed for all male, mainly church, choirs, with men with already broken voices, often former choir boys. In modern times it also applies to mixed choirs. Rural life and professions. Cowboy originally designated a herdsboy employed as cowherd, but lost the age notion, first retaining the connotation of inferior status, later applying to the whole ranch life culture. By contrast shepherd's boy, rather herding sheep or goats, representing less capital, remained restricted to minors. Commercial and other services. Often the term boy describes positions of the trainee type, such as stable boy, a junior stable hand. Best boy in a film crew denotes the chief assistant, usually of the gaffer or key grip, next in line to be promoted. An example of a use where the term is traditionally unaltered in crediting female incumbents. Breaker boys were boys between 8 and 12 years old who worked as coal breakers in U.S. coal mines. The job resulted in a high number of fatal and debilitating injuries, and the practice of employing children as coal breakers largely ended by 1920 due to the efforts of the National Child Labor Committee. Office boy and copy boy refer to a young estate employee, that is lacking experience in training and or performing menial services such as carrying typewritten texts between offices of a newspaper. Even into the early 20th century, the British Empire systematically employed boy clerks, including the specific rank of boy copyist, recruited by examination, despite the name, requiring schooling, and reserved for candidates aged 15 to 18, not retained in that rank after the age of 20. Certain jobs need so little training or formal qualifications that they can easily be performed as student jobs, and thus tend to be filled mostly or exclusively by minors, as it would not pay to employ an adult at or above minimum wage. Thus an equivalent word with the compound man, or similar, may be the rarer one, or even inexistent. Examples include delivery boy, errand boy, messenger boy, and various specific terms naming the product to deliver, such as paper boy, closest adult counterpart postman, pizza boy, alongside pizzaman, or to serve, such as a pot boy, drinks waiter, or a gatherer of empties. In other cases the compound mentions a crucial attribute of his task, for example ball boy, more recently also girls, in tennis. In some cases his small, light body makes a boy a better choice, for example as jockey where no weight handicap is in force. An nipper originally was a boy sent out by an adult, often his own father, as pickpocket, later a boy assistant to various professions such as a carter, still later, recorded since 1859, a boy's age term roughly equal to toddler. Race. Historically, in the U.S. and South Africa, boy was not only a neutral term for domestics but also as a disparaging term towards men of color, implying their subservient status. The usage ran from the period of slavery through segregation and apartheid, though it became less acceptable and decreased as time passed. Citation needed. The use of the term boy has not always been used as an insult. As an example, Thomas Branch, an early African-American Seventh-day Adventist missionary to Nyasaland, Malawi, referred to the native students as boys. There is one way by which we judge many of our present boys to be quite different from some of those who were here long ago. Those that are married have their wives here with them, and build their own houses, and all are busy making their gardens. I have told all the boys that if they wished to stay here and learn, those that had wives must bring them. This is having a good effect on them. They stay longer, and are more attentive to their work and their studies. Boys, in the strict or a wider sense, are often informally referred to by analogous or metaphorical terms. The literal connotations, which may be ironic or downright pejorative, have often been eroded by common use. Some terms are unisex, with or without, at least historical, preponderance of use for boys. Cub, puppy and whelp compare boys to the young of predatory animals, the slang tadpole even to that of an amphibian. Buck, another animal young, usually refers to a sexually adventurous male youngster. Loon, originally in, idle, lout, has got mainly in Scotland unrelated specific meanings, including boy, simpleton and loony person. Sprout compares to a plant's young shoots. References to the boy's generally lighter physique than a man include stripling slender youth and rather insulting slang like half-pint or small fry. More specifically, shaveling, or in slang shaver, refers to boys' lesser hair growth than men's before, and densification around puberty. Various terms refer to children's, often especially boys, lack of adult manners, for example snot-tie-nosed kid, or too often mischievous behavior, for example rascal, also by analogy with animals, for example monkey, urchin, as prickly as a hedgehog, spoiled, brat refers to such undiscipline for a lack of firm upbringing. Furthermore, common boys' names have also been used metonymically to stand for boys and or men in general, as in every Dick and Tom. By analogy, boy can also refer as an anthropomorphic term to a young male, or any male, of another animal, either in general or species-specific. In the last case it may even have a specific term, notably derived from a boy's name, such as Billy Goat for boy goat, or Tomcat, known since 1809, for any male cat, but just Tom, applied to male kittens, is recorded since circa 1303. Again, by analogy, boy can occasionally even refer to a male object. Some words contain boy in English by mistake, folk etymology, actually referring to a near homophone such as French boys equals wood, for example in low boy, a type of furniture, and in tall boy, both furniture and a high glass or goblet. Many mythological boys have frequently been represented in various arts, for example Venus often mischievous son Cupid, himself a young god of love which he inflicts on humans by shooting his arrows, in some style periods even multiplied as naked little boys called putti. In religious art, generally adults preponderate, except as extras, with certain marked, stereotypical exceptions such as the infant Jesus or angels which may even act as Christianized putti. In children's books of English folklore, elves are often portrayed as mischievous little boys who are very small with leaf-shaped ears and blonde hair. In portrait art, and generally in commissioned work, including funeral art, the subjects are usually determined by the wishes of the adult client, so minors are often in the minority. Yet in wealthy families especially heirs are represented as part of their social positioning in view of future marriage and succession, generally either as mini adults or stereotypical youth, for example at play or in cozy home scenes. Some artists displayed a clear predilection for scenes with boys, in certain cases, especially if frequently depicting revealing poses, believed to have to do with a homoerotic taste, as is believed of the highly respected old master Caravaggio, or Henry Scott who kept producing such works even though the market circa 1900 was rather unappreciative. In music, boys' voices, before they break being of a soprano register, specifically known as treble, unlike adult men, in a choir usually tenor and bass, have been most sought after, especially where female voices were considered inappropriate as often in church and certain theatrical music. This even led to the practice of physically trying to prevent their angelical voices ever to break by surgically cutting short the hormonal drive to manhood. For centuries, castrato singers, who coupled adult strength and experience with a treble register, starred in contralto parts, mainly in operatic styles.
And then, my name's Konwani, and while having 3 hours left of energy, I attempted to do the longest jab ever. Flavor did it for almost 20 minutes? 20 seconds? I don't remember. He did it for a long time. I thought I did better than him. Anyway, my name is Konwani. This has been my Yeah Boy video.